Hi everyone and welcome back to the Style POV. This episode is part of the Style File series where listeners come on to share their personal style journeys, the triumphs, the messy middles, and the magic of figuring it out all along the way. Today I'm joined by Christina, who has such an insightful, inspiring perspective on style, creativity, and learning to trust your own eye. Before we dive in, I just want to give you a quick heads up. If you're watching the video version of this podcast, you might notice that my footage looks a little different than usual. That's because my original audio had some technical issues and was totally unsalvageable. So I re-recorded my parts afterwards, same questions, same energy, just better sound. Thanks for bearing with that slight shift. Now let's get into Christina's style journey. I think you're going to love this one. Hi, Christina. I am so excited to have you on. And so I just wanted to get started with the question about where does your style journey begin? When were you first super inspired or excited by fashion?
Oh boy, it's been on and off for years. I would say the most recent style journey was probably like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. But really, I'm going to go further back and just talk about like childhood because I've always been interested in clothes and what people were wearing. I never liked going shopping, but I always liked seeing what people wore in movies. And I loved to draw as a kid. Like, I would draw little dresses on fairy princesses, and my mom would be like, "Oh, it's so wonderful." And she would encourage me because she sews herself. And so it was something that she and my sisters, they always loved going shopping together. I didn't like the shopping piece, but I loved how they put together outfits and how great that they looked, and the other women in my life. I just always thought that they were so beautiful and sophisticated. And so that was just like, I was drawn to it because of them. My sisters are 9 and 11 years older than me, so there's a big age gap. And so I always got to see what them and their friends were wearing, what makeup they were doing, and I was really excited to do that someday. And then once I got into like high school, I'd say that's when it really took off for myself because the very important Gossip Girl, that series was just like awe-inspiring for me. And I went through a huge Blair Waldorf phase of colored tights, headbands, a very conservative look with pops of color everywhere. I was very 2010s, and it was a blast. I was just going to say most recently, it started with the Barbie tour.
Okay, so wait, I want to pause for 1 second because I'd love to hear. So you have Gossip Girl and you have more recently Barbie. Was there one initial inspiration or one movie that you were like addicted to as a kid or as a young kid that all started this? Were there any inspirations like that?
Oh, I was a huge fan of Beauty and the Beast. I think it's just because I also love to read, and that was like every little girl who's a brunette who loves to read just as like Belle. But that yellow dress was everything. And I don't know about any particular TV shows or whatnot. I will say maybe Gilmore Girls because I did watch it live with my sisters and my mom. I really loved like what Lorelai was wearing, not necessarily all of her casual clothes, but I always liked when she dressed up.
You were just into fashion, like you were appreciating it, whether it was coming from movies or your older siblings, like that was something that really inspired you. And Blair Waldorf was such an icon. I remember seeing on screen and being like, oh my gosh, wow, way to craft a character. I think she got us all started on headbands too and color tights for a very long time. We can thank Blair for that.
Have loads of headbands, and in college I did pull back on them because my friends were like, you're wearing a lot of headbands. I know. I need to take a step back and then try something else. But then most recently when they came back, I was like, you know what? I'm going to wear headbands again when I want to. It just won't be with every outfit.
That's good. So during these phases, and especially like in the getting into the Gossip Girl phase, were you feeling good about your style? Were you liking the inspirations? How were you getting dressed each day?
Oh boy, I would try things on and create a mess in my room because I just put something on, stand in front of the mirror, think, okay, this is looking right or it's not looking right. If it wasn't looking right, and then just throw it. And so my poor parents, they just would see a tornado. And unfortunately, I haven't really gotten out of that mentality, but I do try to like pick up a little bit more after. But likewise, it's just a lot of trial and error when I put pieces together, and it was always like that. So I would try to add a few things on, whether it was like accessories or let me add this sweater. Okay, this sweater's not hitting the right place. I don't know why it's not hitting the right place because I didn't have the terminology or the vocab. I just had
Mhm.
this feeling that it wasn't for me. And so then I would just try again. And I also had my high school best friend, she like always loved to dress up in school too. So she was
Mhm.
like very dressy. Like she wore like high-heeled ankle boots. And I didn't
Impressive.
have the high-heeled ankle boots, but I did have the ankle boots and the
Mhm.
ballet flats.
Oh yeah, that was a 2000 staple. Ballet flats and flares.
Yes, definitely.
So it sounds like you're a very artistic person. Like you really like to play with things and get creative, and you're trying lots of different things, and a kind of messy middle was emerging. And like you're loving your headbands, but you're not always loving the final look. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that I would say that's pretty accurate. I think also being in high school, your body changes, and that is also like a whole thing too. And so there's certain things where you're trying to execute like the same look, and it's not coming out the same way that you would want it to be. I am not necessarily like Leighton Meester's size, and I never
Mhm.
was. I mentioned this to you just briefly in the interview, but like I started to have some health problems with PCOS in high school. And so
Mhm.
there's always been like a weight fluctuation that's been part of my style journey. And so there was definitely a lot of frustration when I would try pieces that maybe the outfit worked completely like a few months ago. And then I try it again, either I gained some weight or I lost some weight, and then suddenly it's not
Mhm.
working again. So I think that being able to be intuitive with trying different pieces has allowed me to find some piece even amidst those challenges, because then I can just be like, all right, if it's not going to work this month, maybe it'll
Mhm.
work again in a few months.
Yeah, you got to build in that flexibility because it's like you have to be able to be flexible to approach it 1 month to the next. It's not always, okay, I know exactly this is my staple outfit or my uniform. I know I can pull on that. How are you feeling about your wardrobe then? Did you feel like a little chaotic during those years? Because it can be hard. Your wardrobe, when your style, you're loving it, you should be like this safe space, right? Like it should be that space where you just go in and you look at it and you're like, yes, this is me. I know I can put this on. I can feel my best. This is like an easy yes piece. Did you feel like you struggled finding these easy yes pieces then?
Oh, for sure. There would be like some things that were easy yes pieces, such as like the headband. I think that's why I relied on
Mm-hmm.
it, because like my head's shape was never changing. Or
Yeah.
if I was wearing tights, like they would stretch and they would mold, or like certain
Mm-hmm.
shoes. So I think I found a lot of comfort in the accessories
Mm-hmm.
because they were always consistent. And
Yeah.
so whereas like when it came to a particular top or like a skirt, there would be time periods where I was like, this skirt is everything. It was like this corduroy skirt that was a hand me down from my sister, and I loved it. And then suddenly it didn't work anymore. And then I was so
Mm-hmm.
frustrated because I was like, this is so cute. And to
Yeah.
today, I haven't found the right fit for it. But I'm hoping that I'll be able to make one like that eventually.
Yeah, definitely. I know. I am so excited to hear about your sewing classes. We're definitely going to touch on that soon. But I want to circle back because you were talking about accessories and you mentioned that you also started your style journey with the Barbie movie. And I feel like that is such a good inspiration for all the accessories and like creating that vibe of a look. Can you talk a little bit about how that inspired you?
Oh, yes, definitely. So, like, I've always paid attention to styling and costume design with movies and TV. And it's like one of my really close friends from college, we bonded over period pieces because we're like, the costumes, we love them. But specifically with the Barbie movie, I was just seeing the press tour that Margot Robbie was doing. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, this is so fun and very playful. And I know that some people had been doing playful press tours where they were matching the vibe or the ambiance. But I
Hmm.
think it was really neat that her stylist was able to take like direct like recreations from these classic dolls across the different decades and either
Hmm.
do a direct look or reimagine it to today. So take the
Yeah.
inspiration, but maybe change the silhouette a little bit. And then I saw people online who were like, finally, she's in her colors. And I was like, colors? Oh, that reminds
Mm.
me. I think my mom told me I was a winter when I was growing up. And then I was like, let me go down this rabbit hole, which is actually how I found you.
Oh, that's so funny. I think everyone's mom or in our age bracket has self-typed us at least one point. I think my mom was like, "You're in the autumn family. Our whole family is autumn." It turns out they're wrong. They're actually all springs. But they were like way back in the day. They even had people who like came to your houses, and like my grandmother had someone come to their house and be like, "Your palette is this. You should have olive green wallpaper and orange Tupperware." So, color now has a strong history where all of our parents tried to type us at one point or another. So you found Barbie. You were vibing with the looks. Her looks on the red carpet were just fantastic. I love the reference points too, because it was just really cool. Like I had that Barbie in the black dress with the ponytail and the red lips. Like I had the classic Barbie. It was a Christmas gift. And I remember seeing her on the red carpet and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like a little kid. Like she is just Barbie in a box. Perfect. And so colors started to filter back into your life. Had you been using winter colors at all, or was that just something that like lived somewhere tucked into your brain?
I had it tucked in my brain. I did a little bit of it in high school because I think the 2010s really, or at least the late 2000s, early 2010s, when I think back of what I wore, there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of cool tone clothing.
Oh
There was
yeah.
like a lot of color blocking. There's a lot of like vibrant contrast. And I was like, okay, this really, I thought it worked for me. And
Mm-hmm.
then in college, there was this shift happening where there was still a lot of vibrancy because there was like that sort of twee movement. And I was still utilizing that. But then I was like, ooh, I like these warm tones too. And I got
Mm-hmm.
into makeup and I was doing a lot of warm toned makeup because I was like, I love the sparkle. I love this gold look. And I didn't feel badly about it. I thought it was fun, and there's no
Mm-hmm.
regrets because I think it's fun to look back and see how it
Yeah.
evolves and changes. It was then in the late 2010s, early 2020s where I just felt like I was in a funk because everything was muted and
Mm.
everything was like this monotone, like tonal look. And I just suddenly felt like I was out of style, that I was frumpy, and I was no longer like relevant. And that was really
Mm-hmm.
frustrating because I was like, I'm still like a young woman. And even if
Yeah.
I'm not a young woman, I still don't want to feel that way. So that's why I was happy with the Barbie movie, as silly as it sounds, because it was bringing back that vibrancy. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, we can see that someone can still be in style or on trend or what have you and still bring out all these different colors, which I
Mm-hmm.
know it doesn't matter when it comes to personal style if you want to wear colors, if you want to be muted, but there is a lot of external pressure to stay updated.
Yeah, and it's hard when you're shopping. Like we've all been into the dusty colors for a while now, and it can be tricky when you're going to a store and you're like, even if I wanted to buy this, I just don't feel like it's right for me. Like you go to the store after store and you're hitting all these muted colors, it can feel disheartening. You're like, will I ever find my perfect piece? Does it even exist? So, did you feel like your trends were important to you during your style journey, or can you talk a little bit more about that?
It's not like I followed them to the T or anything because there were still trends from the past. I'm putting these words together about like color blocking and things like that because I now have been building my vocab, but I know what that was then. I was
Yeah.
just like, I like the piece. I can buy it in stores. This looks good. I can make it work. And then suddenly
Mm-hmm.
I was in the stores. I was trying on stuff. I was like, this is not doing anything for me, especially with everything being so boxy,
Yeah.
like oversized and boxy. I don't mind like a looser fit. Like this
Mm-hmm.
dress I'm wearing is like it skims, but if it was completely boxy, it doesn't do anything for my frame. And I think that was hard because I just saw that all the trends were like limiting my ability to express how I wanted to express myself.
Yes. So, at what juncture were you looking for these vocab words or looking for explanation as to, okay, I know the dusty colors aren't quite right. I know this boxy blazer trend isn't going to be my friend right now. Was that the trigger point, or were there other elements encouraging you to seek that information?
I think it was really that point because
Mm-hmm.
I just had to figure out what was I looking for. If I was online shopping because I couldn't find
Mm-hmm.
anything in the stores, what was the vocabulary that I needed? And then because I was looking for the vocab, that then turned into all these different style systems because it just seemed the internet algorithm is how it worked. I like that I'm able to develop a vocab because like it allows me to be able to figure out like what is going to be helpful for me as I continue my style journey.
Okay, so I think you told me that the first style system that you encountered was actually color analysis. So did you go down the rabbit hole? Did you decide to get typed? What was the process there?
Complete rabbit hole. My husband still teases me about it today. It's now a joke in our household because I just was like watching all these YouTube videos and I was taking pictures of myself like with natural lighting and trying different things. It's hard because where I am, there's not really a lot of opportunities to be typed in person. I would have to travel to a bigger city. And I was like, oh, there's a lot of like online opportunities, but AI, it just wasn't feeling right anyway. My husband, he actually has an artistic background himself too. And I was like, just look at me. Am I cool toned or am I warm toned? Because you're cool toned, but you've got like warmth to you because you're the light olive. So there was that. And then at the college where I work at a community college, there is a fashion program there, which is pretty unique for a 2-year school. So there is a fashion program there. And during a professional activity week, the fashion professor who like leads the department, she did this session called like Find Your Power Suit. She brought out the new swatches and we just got typed into the main 4 seasons. When I did that, we were like in a group where it was half of us looking at each other in this color, but she had us also test our, I guess, our eyesight. It has to do more with, can you see the differences in color?
Yeah, because there's different spectrums and your visibility is like important because being able to tell the difference between a warm yellow and a cool yellow, honestly, even when you find your season, a lot of people are like, you don't need to know color theory. And I'm like, you're right, but it's super helpful to be able to train your eye to see the colors. If you could tell, hey, that's a super warm color. Hey, that might be not be close to one of my neutrals. So I totally understand that.
So she also did bring up things about color theory in terms of tones and shades, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. I want to learn, because there was one woman who was having difficulty getting typed, and I was like, I've got my ideas. So I was like, can I go to your 1-to-1 session with the fashion professor? And she said, yeah, I don't care. And so I did that. And then turns out she was a winter as well. It looks like lower contrast in her face because she has like lighter eyebrows, but she has darker salt and pepper hair. If she ends up watching this, I think that you're a beautiful human. But it was so neat to see like how those colors really brought out like a vibrancy in her skin. And then the professor was like, oh, you're really into this. There's a styling class that you could take with the students. I was like, oh, really? And so that's what I did this past spring, was take a styling class. And then we did the same activity, but with a different professor and my classmates, who most of them are like 18, 19. And here I am, like a 31-year-old in the room with them. They typed me as a spring, which threw me off.
Were the whys? What did they like about spring versus winter? Because like they're both high contrast, right?
I think it was the high contrast because we weren't doing any of the subtypes. I had this realization that if I am neutral cool or neutral warm, ultimately I need brightness, which I have seen that before, like when I would do like costumes in like theater, or because I like did community theater when I was younger, or if I danced, or if I did like this fun dramatic look, it was always part of it. It just confirmed that the contrast. I would love to actually get professionally typed beyond just the 4 seasons, but I do think that was fun, and of course that led me down to the other rabbit holes of Kibbe and Kitchener. And
so it sounds like style has been a very fun exploration and creative outlet for you, especially when you started to learn about these things that like you could see, you could apply some of your interests from when you were younger, like talking about the plays and all the movies, just that love of completing this enchanting look or vibe. What do you think was instrumental in shifting you from, or taking that step to be like, I'm going to take the class? Because not everyone will do that. It takes a great person to be able to like, heck, I'm just going to go to this community class. I'm going to dive in and I'm going to do colors. And it seems like you have such a gusto about it. And I just love it. So do you think that's just your personality, or?
I really love learning. I just always love learning. I've always loved to learn about anything and everything since I was a kid, which I think really benefits me in keeping life exciting because there's
Yeah.
always something new to gain out there. But also, my particular role, like in my job at the college, is a bit high stress because I'm under like a grant program and I
Oh
lead
yeah.
it. And
Ooh.
there's always this external pressure of the grant.
Yeah.
And so and plus there's like outside external stressors with family and their health problems. I was like, I need
Mhm.
something that's for me, like just
Yeah.
me. And I think that's why I did it because I was like, I'm finding that this is relaxing me and I get to disengage my brain from all of the other things I normally am thinking about. And so I can
Mhm.
shift my focus and do something that is completely different and then grow.
That's so cool. It sounds like you have just filled this little part of your brain where it could be yours and you like take possession of it and be able to see something like this fulfills me in a different way than maybe my job or my friends or whatever elements there are in your life. There's just this like little creative outlet for me. Did you feel like it was a different environment when you were draping at home and consuming content versus when you stepped into the class?
I think it was definitely different for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Because also, besides being graded, that's a
Oh yeah.
different mentality. I also had to put into words my thoughts of as to why I thought X, Y, and Z. Why was a particular look like how would it work together? Why were these
Mm-hmm.
certain elements work for this body type, or why would it work for this person at this stage in their life? And we did all these
Cool.
different exercises where we'd be given these scenarios of this person is X years old, they're in this type of environment, they're trying to achieve this type of thing, have free reign, put an outfit together, like
Mm-hmm.
mood board wise. And that was like a fun activity that we do every class. One of my favorite assignments was we had to help one of our loved ones or friends redesign a look of theirs that they would normally
Cool.
do, a
Mm-hmm.
daytime and an evening. And so my
Mm-hmm.
best friend from college, she lives in New York City. I live not in New York City. And we did this over the phone. And I was like, take pictures of things. And I got to help her rework this outfit, her daytime outfit. And then because she worked like her work outfit. And the evening one, I was able to get this blazer of hers that she has not been able to make work. I
Mm-hmm.
was able to make it work for her. I was like, why don't you try it with this dress? Because she kept trying it with pants and she's a lot
Yeah.
shorter than I am. And yeah, really fun. And she was happy because she got loads of compliments when she wore it and it looked really good. But she's only worn it once and then she just moved recently. So she did apologize. She's, I'm sorry I donated the blazer.
That's okay. She figured out how to make it work with your help, which is huge. That's so cool. So, a question. When you were asked to create all those whys for the assignments, did you find yourself carrying that through to your own style too? All of a sudden, when you're getting dressed, like asking those why questions. So, let's hear a little bit more about that.
Yes, I definitely was thinking more intentionally of what's my why. So if I'm going to this family event, why am I wearing these certain clothes? If I am
Mm-hmm.
going out grocery shopping, why am I wearing these clothes? If I'm going to a pumpkin patch, like why am I doing it? And then for work, specifically the different situations, like what's my audience? Because if I'm working with the students one to one, I have to present myself very differently than if I'm working with upper administration or external
Mm-hmm.
partners. And I
Yeah.
just had to think like, how can I make an outfit work for me in the different environments if I'm going to be facing different people in the same day? Because I
Yeah.
do know that when it comes to nonverbal communication, like your clothing is part of it.
Of course it is. What did you find out about merging all those styles together? Were there any takeaways?
I don't have a solid takeaway yet because I'm still exploring it, but I have found that in certain settings that I feel like I can be more expressive. In my current work, I were to maybe meet with some like external partners who it depends on the external partners too. Are they community agencies or are they government officials? So if I was meeting with like someone from the government, for example, maybe I throw on a blazer with this to
Mm-hmm.
just add a bit of formality. But then again, maybe I take the blazer off if I'm meeting with a community partner. There's different like unspoken standards of professionalism.
It's cool that you could view it from the lens of this one piece can help transition it from an authentic outfit to the different domains that you need to live in. So color was feeling good. You're gaining all this style knowledge. It's such an interesting journey so far. So how was it being a stylist for your friend then? Because you have all this new knowledge.
Oh, it was great. I love it. And I've
Yeah.
also done it for random people now. Like I
Mm-hmm.
went to like a Marshalls or a TJ Maxx. I was like looking at it and this lady had said, "Oh, that looks really cute." Didn't have it try on. I just picked it up. And then
Yeah.
she said, "I'm going on a trip. I'm going to the UK in January. I'm trying to find clothes to wear." And I was like, I went to the UK in January and I just helped her pick some like clothes up. I was like, this would look great with your eyes.
How you're like putting it forward, all your knowledge and education, just let's share it with everyone. That's the best story I've heard in a really long time. It's just so nice to be able to give someone that and have that shared, yeah, fashion is great moment.
And I want her to have a fun trip and to feel good in herself, like while she's there and feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So
It's such a powerful thing when you feel good in your clothes. So colors were being figured out. You felt good with that. What kind of came next? You've done the styling classes, the color classes. You're on a roll. What's happening now?
simultaneously, I was like going into the Kibbe system, which that has just been a struggle for me. I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
lie. So I'm 5'10", so I know that there are three. There are three that I can be.
Mm-hmm.
And dramatic is not one of them.
Okay.
So since then, I've just been waffling back and forth between flamboyant natural and soft dramatic, and I still cannot figure it out at the moment. I think that maybe it's flamboyant natural, and then perhaps because of like including other style systems that perhaps there's certain elements of flamboyant natural that just don't work as well on me or I don't feel as comfortable in them. But
Mm-hmm.
like I know that I really do like a neckline that's more open, a common feature for both of them.
Yeah, I know. And then it can be hard to parse through because there's like overlaps between some of the actual recommendations. And then sometimes people are like, it's just a vibe. Are you free spirit chic or are you diva chic? And you're like, I'm not totally sure. Every system doesn't work for every person in the moment. Sometimes you have to go back to them at a later time. Did you find the styling class influenced you on how you viewed Kibbe or at all on the other style systems?
It wasn't necessarily that class per se. It wasn't just the only focus, but one of the lessons was about the fruit
Mm-hmm.
shapes. And I suppose I erroneously thought that I was an apple till like my one fashion professor's, no, you're not an apple at all. There is clear waist definition right here. She like pointed right there. And I was like, oh boy, I think it's harder to see it for yourself than it is for others. And I
Yeah.
think that's been my main takeaway. And I think that's why people online are always so like adamant of, yeah, I know because I can see it.
We should definitely discuss that because I think it can be helpful and hurtful at different junctures in your style journey to be like getting that feedback or asking for feedback in general. Because some people are so confident online and they're like, you are this. And then you spend 6 months exploring it and you're just like, wait a second. All of a sudden you're like, no, I'm definitely not that. And you're like, I should have just spent a little bit more time or focused on my own point of view. So did you find the groups helpful or were they just something that you didn't use very often at this time?
Intermittently. It depended on like my mood. Some of the groups I found really helpful, and others I was like, I think you are just falling into stereotypes.
Yeah.
It is still very individual. And I know that with the systems, like there's these structures,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, like with any theory, there is no perfect execution of it. If you think
Of
about
course.
academic theories and take whatever field you want to pick. It doesn't have to be fashion. It could be
Mm-hmm.
sociology. It could be psychology. Whatever theories that exist, there's never a perfect execution of it. And I think if
Mm-hmm.
I keep that in mind, it's like I don't have to be perfect at Kibbe or I don't have to be perfect at Kitchener in order to
Yeah.
still find value in some of the things. Like I know that there is width in like my upper body. I know that vertical is important. I'm learning how to like create vertical through color or not breaking the line or intentionally breaking the line and what that does. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that is like just as valuable or even more because then you can
Mm-hmm.
create an effect that you want to create with it.
Absolutely. I think it's about customization at the end of the day. Like, we get so fixated on the name of that thing we are, or like, I need the answer. And what we fail to recognize is that these are all different frameworks that will provide you more or less information depending on where you are at in your style journey. So, if you're super early in your style journey and you hate everything you wear, a system like Kibby might completely open up your eyes because you're like, oh my God, I never thought about clothes this way. But if you're more progressed in your style and you're feeling really good about the choices you're making, and you just want some subtle improvements or some subtle shifts, you may not need the whole like kit and caboodle. You may not need every recommendation. You may not need to study the text like it's a Bible that's going to lead to fashion perfection. And I think the approach of, hey, this is one tip on how to use fabric, or this is one tip on how to understand vertical line, is changing how you approach style, then that's great. But I don't think you need to nail down necessarily if you're diva chic or free spirit chic. It's okay to be like,
some moods I want to be free spirit chic, and other moods I want to be diva chic, and I want to have the freedom to move between those two.
yeah, and it sounds like you're really creative too, and you really enjoy like the head to toe looks and crafting a thematic outfit that has a vibe and personality and allows you to feel like you feed into that creativity that you love to cultivate. So you're finding all the style systems. It's changing some things. Now, you mentioned you started sewing classes, and I want to hear all about that because I love a good style sewing journey.
Oh boy, this is very humbling, this one for me. But before I go into it, I do want to say quickly about the head to toe look and themes. I love a theme. I just love a theme. I love a theme party. It's the theater background. You get to try on different things. And I was just like, when you said that, I was like, oh, wow, I'm thinking about this theme day in high school, or this theme idea that we did as a party with friends, just all of that. So the sewing class, it is 3 hours once a week. And I've had 2 sessions so far. So I'm still very brand new at it. It's apparel construction fundamentals. So I'm learning how to sew to create garments, and I know that by the end of the semester I will have made, besides all the different samples of different techniques, I'll have made a tote bag, pajama pants, a skirt, and then the big project is a shirt dress with all the different elements.
Yeah, that's like the culmination of it all. I'm not going to say don't be terrified, because sewing things that can be a little terrifying, but it's like a fun terrifying. And I will say just give yourself enough time, because as someone who has sewed under pressure before, it usually doesn't go very well. I remember like crying over welt pockets in college, being like, why can't I understand the steps of a welt pocket at 4 a.m. trying to get my homework done on time?
Oh my goodness. I had a very humbling experience on Monday with my class, because I've used a sewing machine in the past, but it's been a long time. And so we were being taught, like, this is how you thread the sewing machine, because this is like a lot of basic beginners that are in this, myself included. And then as I'm working on one of my samples, I went to a different sewing machine. I was like, oh, I have to thread this. And I just got to the point, and I was looking at it, and I was doing the things. I was like, and the last step is, and I just sat there.
And people don't realize, like, just when they stare at a sewing machine, that you're like, you have to pull it in through here. It goes back there. Then it comes back up. It loops down there. It goes back down. It goes around here. It's like super confusing the first time you do it.
So they're fast. So I'm very slow with it because I'm still learning how to do it. The hand sewing is not as difficult for me because I like to cross stitch and like done that for years. So that's not as big of a problem. It's the machine sewing, which is going to be the rest of the semester. It's a humbling experience, but ultimately I'm glad I'm finally doing this, because I've always wanted to learn how to sew. Like, always.
That's good. It's really good to learn those new skills. And it can be so freeing, because at first you're like, you have a new appreciation of clothes, right? Like you look at garments now and you're like, whoa, okay, this jacket took a lot of time. Look at all these beautiful interfacings, and look at the lapel shape, and how perfect is that buttonhole. Like you really see clothes differently. And it also teaches you how clothes work as well. There's things that you think will be easy to do in your head, like a welt pocket. There's a million welt pockets on every trousers. Try sewing a welt pocket, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I never knew there were 16 steps just to get this flap looking correct. So what were your goals, or what are your goals with sewing? Is it something that you just want to have as a hobby? Is like sewing going to be an opportunity to both express like that amazing creativity you have while also giving you the clothes that you really need? or what you're thinking about it?
I would like to do all those things that you just said, like a hobby, obviously, but I would love to be able to tailor my own clothes. Like
Yeah.
that's what would be ideal. I also think that because there is also a lack of tailors in my area, it's also out
Mm-hmm.
of necessity because it's
Yeah.
like if I want to have pieces that are going to be like tailored to myself, like who's going to do it? So
Yeah.
partially that I've always dreamt of going into a thrift store, finding some clothes and then just like making them look great for me. But I
Yeah.
have no idea how to do that yet.
If you just keep practicing and sewing, and honestly, you'll go from, I assume you guys are cutting patterns that are already created. You're not draping your own patterns, correct? So you're,
Is like the third level of the class. So
okay.
I'm in level 1. So like right now we haven't even approached the pattern yet. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
doing all the different seams with the different like half-inch seam allowance or inch seam allowance and all
Mm-hmm.
these different pieces. I think we're going to start the pattern next week for the tote bag, and there's 3 different courses I could take. One
Mm-hmm.
of my friends who's in the class, she's also an employee at the college. She took it backwards because she actually has sewing experience. So
Mm-hmm.
she took draping first, and now she's in the class with me, and it's like she's a TA in a way because
Yeah, yeah.
a lot of people can be like, wait, I need help with this. And the professor's already helping with someone else. And
Mm-hmm.
then she can come in and be like, okay, this is what you do.
Man, you're kind of making me want to go back to sewing class. This sounds fun. It's cool that you guys can do that together too, but it's like this fun hobby, but it also has a super impactful end result. And the thing is too that the more you sew, the more you understand how garments are made, and the more you'll see when you're out shopping, the flexibility and the limitations of what you can do to a garment. And I think that's incredible knowledge, especially for someone who wants to go into a thrift store and let's say, can I make this dress have a wider neckline? Can I make it fit my waist better? Can I fit this to my body shape? And it gives you a new perspective because I think a lot of people just think, oh, a tailor can fix it. Boom. And once you learn to sew, you're like, well, a tailor could fix it, but it's going to be so complicated that we might just want to start from scratch. So it's really a cool journey for you because it's going to give you new perspective on shopping as well. And I hope it kind of improves your shopping experience too, where you have a finer detail for eye and an understanding of construction where you can have a more positive shopping experience.
I hope
So,
so too. And the one other thing I was going to mention is even with my own wardrobe, I realize I have all these t-shirts that like I love the design on them, but I
mhm,
hate the fit.
yeah.
And I just want to change them. So like I will actually wear them. They're just sitting in
Hmm.
my closet, and it would be great to just make better use of it because I'm really like thoughtful about the fact that with the environment, I want to wear what I have.
And it's such a huge part of that where you can really put the care in, or you can mend things, or you can tweak them to fit you. It's really empowering, actually. And I just think it's so cool. So, how are you feeling about your style today? Where do you want to take it? How is your wardrobe looking? Share us an update on today and into the future.
Okay, today I'm feeling pretty good because this past summer, I always felt like summer was a difficult season for me when it came to
Mm-hmm.
clothing because I really love layers. I love a drapey cardigan that's long. I love the textures of it. Like fall and winter and early spring are great. And as soon as it gets like hot and muggy, I just don't know how to dress for myself, or I felt like that. And
Mm-hmm.
then this summer, I really dressed differently and I was able to find like lightweight layers, or I dressed more in dresses. And I was like, I don't have to wear shorts. I felt like I had a big style win this summer. And I was really happy about that because
Mm-hmm.
for years, summer was like this pain point of I just felt like I couldn't find anything that just felt good. And I'm excited for fall because it's my favorite season. Moving forward, though, my next thing I want to do is try to really cultivate what my wardrobe is going to be
Mm-hmm.
and get rid of the pieces that just don't work. I've got this dress I bought that the color does nothing for me. Maybe I could change it so the fit would be better, but the
Mm-hmm.
color doesn't do anything. So why am I keeping it? So I really just need to pare things down because I
Mm-hmm.
just want to have less. And when I'm doing the clothing tornado, I want
Mm-hmm.
to be able to have fewer things to throw around.
I feel you on that one. I do want to circle back first to summer because I wanted to ask, were there any good themes used in summer? Because I think it's so empowering too that you were like, I don't have to wear shorts if I don't like shorts. Like I can wear dresses. That's awesome. I fully endorse that idea. But were there any themes? Because you mentioned that you like a good theme. Were there any themes that you were embracing that really have been hitting the mark, or just open creativity that like fulfills you?
It's really the open-ended. It's hard because there's so many different cores, like mermaid core. Sometimes I feel like I get limited by the micro trends that are happening, like with like quiet luxury. I was like, yeah, that's fine. I found that there were these similar to the long drapey cardigan. I had these like lightweight, I guess there's some type of polyester blend, but they were like made for summer and for spring, and there's kimono. And I also, for a while, like I was given them as like a gift and I couldn't figure out how to make it work. And then one day I was like, I'm just going to try it in a bunch of different ways. And then I found that they fit really well with a few different dresses. And so I could rotate it out. And literally every time I wore that particular piece, it didn't matter which dress it was with, I always got complimented. You look so cute today. This is such a great outfit. Or then I tried one that was similar and I was like, wow, I'm finding that this formula is like working for myself. And I could wear it to work and still be work appropriate and find the elements that I love from the winter time, but just make it summer instead.
Yeah, it seems like boldness, a little bit of creativity, uniqueness, all that kind of speaks to you.
Yeah, right? I do really like that.
Yeah, if you express yourself really well in style, like you just get a vibe from you and all the way you speak and the way you carry yourself. It's just really cool to see. So what is your plan for your style moving forward? Maybe you need a closet audit and you need to start a pile of these pieces don't really work for me, and get your drawing and sketch pad out again and be like, here are things I need to save for or start sewing. Get your fashion designer going on and what am I going to do to this t-shirt to make it fit my bold creativity? So talk a little bit about what's next.
Yes, I already started a pile of things that I definitely want to get rid of. And I think my next pile is going to be, this is what I want to try to revise and challenge myself to like test my sewing skills. That's like the next piece. I do want to figure out what my Kitchener essences are. Like, I think I might reach out to Andrea and ask for her assistance. I jokingly have said that I just have ingenue essence because I have a round face, and like for years people are like, yeah, baby face. Even today, like with my friends, when they joke around about like having a baby face, I'm like, no, you just have ingenue essence.
They're like, what rabbit hole are you in now? But yeah, you should. Andrea gives such interesting reports. I love seeing the reports in the group of people sharing their results from her in the Facebook group, because it's really cool to see that people have so many essences and that there's little elements that can start to explain like, oh, that's why I gravitate towards this, or that's why I can only do a little accessory of this, or I have this little bit of ingenue and I never really realized. This is why I like those details, or this is why I like that type of neckline. It can be cool, like a final puzzle piece to match everything together. And it might help you with your sewing too, because you might find that certain techniques suit you. You'd like to learn more about this technique versus some other ones. Because maybe if you don't have dramatic, you might not be looking at hardcore tailoring or structured elements or bindings, and you might be veering more into draping and a little bit more romantic. But it's really cool to see. So I think that's just wonderful that you've explored all these community resources and you're like looking for the knowledge, and it's just really inspiring. I love that. It's probably like my favorite quality in a person. I'm just inspired by you and your pursuit of knowledge. So what advice would you have for anyone else on their style journey?
Oh, I appreciate that. I feel really inspired by all the people that are in the community too, who are like trying, and they put themselves out there all the time. I don't post in the group that frequently. And it's not because I don't care or anything. I'm just like, ooh, putting myself on the internet is the internet. That's always just a challenge itself. So like, I really respect that people are taking all these chances. I think that people need to get out of their heads when it comes to the systems and just remember that like, what we talked about earlier, that you can take pieces of it and make it work. So if you're building your vocabulary and finding out that this particular element of the system works for you and you can be more intentional with your clothes, that might help you find more peace with your wardrobe and within like your body and all of that. I just think that people need to trust their intuition And they also should look back at their childhood too, because I think that when you're a kid, you're drawn to things that bring you joy and then try to harness that as an adult. That's my advice.
I think that's awesome advice, first of all. I think everyone should take what works for them and leave the rest. And that's a hard lesson to learn, but it seems like you were just, boom, that's it, done, which is like really impressive, first of all. And second of all, it's really cool to think about your childhood because we can see through your journey. Like you've had these instincts, you've had this love of fashion, you saw that you're sketching and drawing and having this creativity and playful moment with style. Like it was all stacking and reaching this kind of pinnacle moment for you. I'm taking control of my style. I'm going to learn to sew. I'm going to learn to make these clothes work for me. Because if I can't find exactly what I want out there, or I need to be a size smaller this month or a size bigger, I'm going to have the power to do that. I just want to say, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope you update us with your sewing journey and how the shirt dress goes. And just one last tip, if you do start those t-shirts, don't do one you love first because there may be a little bit of a learning process on that. I had to learn that the hard way. Start with one that you're just like, it's okay if I mess this one up.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like when I taught my friends cross stitch. This happens every time I was teaching people how to cross stitch. They would do basic things and then suddenly they were like, I'm inspired and I'm going to pick this really complicated giant project. And then they would abandon it. And I was like, no, don't do it. But every single person, like once they got into it. So I just have to remind myself, don't be that person. Start small. It's baby steps.
Exactly. Sewing is just all about little baby steps and stacking the knowledge that you gain and learning how to tackle the new challenges it likes to throw at you. But I am so glad that you shared your journey with us. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, thank you for having me. I really had a blast. I'm excited that you're doing this podcast. I'm really excited that you invited the listeners. I think that everyone brings something so unique to the table, and I feel really inspired by the other listeners and followers in your group. So thank you.
And that's it for this episode of the Style Files on the Style POV. Until next week, guys. See you then.